It's all yours.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, everybody. Once again, I'm Chuang, CTO of Oversea. And I have a very exciting field of panelists here. We're going to talk about acquiring mobile users on a restricted budget. So hopefully it will all be very informative. And between this and Pitch Fest, this is what's stopping you guys from going to Magic Castle. So hopefully this will be worthwhile for everybody. So round of intro. First, we have Cindy Krum. Cindy here is the CEO and founder of Mobile Moxie. She's the author of the mobile marketing, of the book Mobile Marketing, Finding Your Customers No Matter Where They Are. Next, we have Gary. Gary Rudolph is the founder of Lole, and of course, as many of you guys may know, Lole is the one that built the domain sponsor app for us. So you have him to thank, him and Bardia to thank for the great app that you guys have on your phone. Last but not least, we have Bryson Meunier. Bryson is the Director of Content Solution for Resolution Media, and yet another SEO expert. So we have lots of good SEO folks and good traffic acquisition experts here, so hopefully we'll have a very lively conversation. So let me kick it off with the ladies first. Maybe help you with a little plug from your book. Your mobile marketing, finding your customers no matter where they are. Tell me a little about this book and what advice seems to be most important to your clients.
So I wrote the book starting in 2010, and it hit the shelves in 2011. So it's already a bit outdated, unfortunately, and I'll fess to that right now. But it got really good reviews, and a lot of the stuff is conceptual rather than technology specific, so the concepts all still stand up just fine. And it's been translated into Italian, German, Korean, and Chinese. It gets 4.5 out of 5 stars on Amazon, so people do like it. The best advice in there, I talk a lot about mobile SEO, getting your site to rank when people are doing searches. I also talk about paying for traffic with mobile PPC, which of course just changed yesterday with the way you can no longer segment specifically for mobile phones. But it's a lot about SEO, PPC, and then, of course, driving traffic with apps or driving awareness with apps, and also social media and mobile and social and local and social, how they interact.
And you can find it on the Kindle store. And
it's on the Kindle, yeah.
And grab it on your
You can read it on your phone, on the Kindle app.
So speaking of Google and the recent AdWord change, that seems to be causing a little rumble around the industry. Bryson, maybe you could talk a little bit about how, what kind of impact you think that will have.
So, I think that it forces everyone to think about mobile, because the reason why Google is doing this is because they're trying to monetize that mobile traffic better, but advertisers were reluctant to go beyond the desktop and set up these mobile-specific campaigns. And now Google's making it easy for everyone to set up, to reach these mobile users without really doing anything special, like setting up these separate device-specific campaigns. So I think it's positive for mobile in a sense, because it doesn't treat it as, the redheaded, no offense, Cindy, stepchild, where you really, it's not an afterthought anymore. Google is saying, mobile is here. Mobile is something that you have to consider, and we're going to kind of force you by having these enhanced campaigns. So I think it's a good thing in a sense. Of course, you don't have the control that you used to. And I've heard people who are upset about that, but I think there are pluses and minuses, but it's mainly good for mobile.
Any thoughts, Cindy?
I'm going to disagree at least a little bit, that I'm not as enthusiastic about it, and I don't think it's necessarily great for mobile, just because I like the data, and we had transparency previously where you could segment by device and understand exactly how each device was converting, what was converting well on this device might not convert well on that device. Now it's all a black box, and the marketer in me is terrified of black box and Google making my decisions for me. I hope that it's good for mobile. I hope that it encourages, but I think that there's a risk it could discourage people because they don't get the data. So there's no reinforcement. If they've done a good job, there's no reinforcement to continue to build out their mobile offerings. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
And Google is saying, and I think that's fair, but Google is saying that you'll be able to track things a lot better with this new system, so that attribution will be more seamless. You'll be able to understand when someone searches on something on their phone and then buys on their computer because of this new system. I think that's in the future, but you'll be able to have that kind of data that even though you're going to lose some of it, you'll have that data that really doesn't even exist today.
Yeah, it's new data that you'll get, but I wish we didn't have to trade one for the other. I wish we could still have the old data. Someone in the previous session asked, he said, I'd really like to target my product to people who have a lot of money, so I want to target to the more expensive phones. Can I do that? And with the ad networks that are not AdWords, you still can. And so I think that might push the ad dollars to places where you can segment by phone type, just for people who choose that kind of segmentation or demographic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to keep on disagreeing with you because I think that you're right on about a lot of things. But I would say, with regard to that gentleman, a lot of times people are going to have expensive phones and they buy it because of, not because they make a lot of money. If you actually look at the demographics of these expensive phones, some of them don't really make that much.
I agree.
So even though, you would think that the more expensive the phone, the more purchasing power they have, that doesn't always work that way.
I think it's better like for mainstream, for a lot of small businesses, because it's a lot easier to not worry about it. You're just advertising in bed and breakfast. You're just advertising in Los Angeles. But like when we advertise for specific applications, or we're advertising for specific manufacturers or specific platforms, it's really a letdown. Because then that's really tough to target just for an iPhone, or now it's trying to bundle it all together, and you have to get much more broken down into it.
I think I have one more thing to say, and that is I think that this might be a very clever cover-up for a problem that Google was facing, which is that with more and more mobile traffic, it gets harder and harder for their servers to automatically detect and serve the ads. That's a huge burden on their end that was probably getting very expensive. And so they're saying that this is for our benefit, and I'm always going to question when they say that.
Right.
Yeah. No, and they did something similar last year in June when they, they said responsive design is best.
Yay.
I mean, it's best for webmasters, but it's also best for Google because, there's not they don't have the resource constraints. So they are sometimes known for doing that. But I do think, even though you all have good points, ultimately it is going to be good for, the average business owner to just think about, this multi-screen world that we have, instead of automatically just setting up the desktop campaign. Now they have to think about, the user behavior and how the user behavior goes across screens. And I think that's what I was saying, that's powerful, in spite of the fact that I do agree with, your points as well.
It's a wait and see. I think we'll have to really play with it and see how it ends up working.
Yeah, so it seems like let's see them roll it out and see how we react to that.
Yeah, it just happened yesterday.
Absolutely. So Gary, Lole built the domain sponsor app, which I hope everybody has played it, checked it out already, and getting a lot of good feedback. Maybe another app that you guys have built in the past is the eHarmony app, and eHarmony being a very interesting site. How do you get cheap date traffic?
Well, eHarmony is a little bit different because one of them is that they have an established brand. So when we're talking about getting users onto their platform, it's a lot easier than perhaps some startups. One of the ones is that they can convert a lot of traffic over. They have people are aware of eHarmony. You're seeing advertising on TV and getting associated with that. So it's a much easier conversion. They'll try to market when you're hitting their website. You're seeing interstitial pages to try to go over to the apps. When we do a lot of startups, a lot more difficult to try to get a brand new app with no recognition and trying to get them exposed, whether it's initially starting out with some PR and blogging and to get some attention into some credible sources. And then it's acquiring people just through advertising. And typically when we're doing advertising, it's quite expensive to get the downloads. And then migrating even then, we look at some more, because of that, we look at some more interesting ways and kind of non-mainstream where we look at app of the day, kind of free promotions. We try to also do some bartering. We say, hey, if we do this in our app, will you advertise us in this app? And the catch is always if you can get one success, can you then bleed that over and advertise, kind of cross promote? And actually, along with the cross promotion, eHarmony did that a little bit with they created an alternate dating app, and they would use that sometimes to upsell into eHarmony or downsell, depending on the different markets as well.
Have you ever tried the app? Or you're a married man, so.
Yeah.
How do you test it?
Funny enough, we do. I mean, most of it's done behind on testing environments, but we do occasionally go into where we'll get matched and test the app, but we don't get matched and be able to communicate with real people, because that's a little weird. But for some of their other products, it's pretty typical to be using it and use it out there.
So for the domain, and sorry, this may be a little off topic, but since we have you up here, for the domain sponsor app, maybe give the audience a little sneak preview of things, tips on how to use it, and as well as maybe things down the line that you could see potentially adding to it and increase the value for our domainers.
Yeah, I think with the domain sponsor app there's an interesting model where you try to approach is today, domain sponsor is not a new market, a new product. And so when we approach those types of development efforts, it's more about we need to get more of the functionality that's inside the app available on mobile. And then, of course, we do try to tailor a lot of the features, and we try to look at what you'd want to know. Like, basically, hey, how am I doing today? How's my portfolios doing? How's travel doing? How's maybe specific domains that are going up and down in those portfolios? And look at that really very quickly, get a quick feel for it. Not a lot of configuration or editing or reacting to things, but initially just looking at how things are responding, more from an analytical perspective. But it's also a case when we approach an app like domain sponsors, we have to actually make sure we cover a much broader feature set than, say, a startup where a lot of startup apps where we're looking at brand new is we're trying to get minimal functionality as quick as we can, get people to use it, get their feedback, try it out. But something like domain sponsor, we can't actually release it without saying, okay, how are my portfolios doing? How are my domains doing? What, is it different demographics, different countries? Is it mobile traffic? Is it desktop traffic? And those are the things we try to expose from the day one inside the app. For power users, can I manage more than one account without having to go through the process of logging in, logging out? So that's a much different model for initial builds for an established brand. For some newer ones, are much quicker, lighter weight, get it out the door.
Great. So now you have the app build, and I throw it into the App Store. The App Store seems like a black box to me compared to the old web world and search and SEO. So some of the things I could do, so for example, is to add keywords to the search. So how do you select keywords? Cindy?
Well, Bryson knows a lot about keyword selection. He's written some really great articles about it. So I'll let him answer the keyword selection, but it's really important where you put them. You put them in the title, and there's a keyword field, and those two are combined, so you don't need to overlap. And that's a really important mistake that people make. They kind of waste keyword space by overlapping the title and their keyword list. But keyword selection?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I mean, it is really important, especially when you're thinking about App Store optimization, to think about how people are going to search for apps, because it's often different from how they search for things on the web. For example, and I also have an eHarmony story, because we worked with them for a little while, actually promoting their app. And they asked us to promote it and think about the kinds of keywords. And one of the things was, one of their main keywords was dating site. Well, like, no one looks for dating site when they're looking at the App Store, because they're not looking for sites, So when it comes to those kinds of navigational keywords, site or .com, these things are completely absent from the App Store. So you have to think about, what people actually are looking for. Instead of those kinds of navigational keywords, they're looking for dating app or, chat app or things like that. And, so we went into the keyword tools, and there are various keyword tools that you can use. As Cindy alluded to, I've written about this. I actually wrote about it recently on Search Engine Land, had a whole guide to mobile keyword research in general, both app search and web search. And essentially, for app search, there are no app keyword tools the way that there are web keyword tools. So you can't really use the Google keyword tool to figure out what the volume is and to get a better sense of the demand. So it is a black box in that sense. However, you can use autocomplete. So Google Play, for example, they have, if you type in 3 characters, they'll give you popular queries. And then you can see like the popular queries in order of popularity generally. So if you're doing a research for something like a dating app, you can put in DAT, and then they can give you everything around dating that people are looking for. Or you can put in the LOV, and they can give you everything around love. So even though there is no specific keyword tool, you can use this autocomplete to essentially be the same thing. And another good, Google Play is good for that, and another good resource is Yahoo Search. They have App Search, which is, I think, app.search.yahoo.com. And you can put in 1 character, so you can find out, generally what are the keywords that people are looking for in app stores the most. And, I have actually put in the letters of the alphabet in there just to see what the most popular ones are. Publish that on Search Engine Land as well if you want to look it up.
Another one too we always try to is most of the app stores kind of have policies against using competitors' name and products in there. So it also becomes creativity where sometimes you might throw in the word match, or you might throw in a few different, where you're not going to get flagged or it's going to be against the rules, but you're trying to be a little bit creative about competitors or alternate products that would kind of lead into there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason why they do that is because it used to work, and I think it still does work to some extent now, that you can put in the list of these are our competitors in your description, and you're going to show up along on their brand term.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's something that we advise against, but you can as an SEO you can optimize for a keyword without actually putting the phrase in.
Yep.
There's also Mobile Dev HQ, which will allow you to look and see what your competitors are targeting, so that you know that at least you're targeting the same things that they are, or you can see where the holes in their strategy are and say, oh, they're not targeting this. I really should push hard for this keyword since it's relevant and no one else is targeting it. So you can take that both ways, but also they have kind of an approximate keyword tool that they don't really very clearly tell you how it works, but it's kind of an estimate of the different value of the keywords in the App Store.
Have you seen taking some of the web keywords and have that be useful for when you're seeding into the App Store for apps as well?
I mean, some of the web keywords just don't become relevant, like the dating site that I said.
Yep.
But there are some. You can actually use the Google Keyword Tool to find mobile keywords, and some of those mobile keywords are going to be app specific. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that people use Google to find apps, those can be helpful. So you can see, for example, what the volume is for something like download dating app or dating app. So that is helpful, but you have to take it with a grain of salt because obviously people are going to search on these things a lot more in actual app stores than they do in Google. And unfortunately, there used to be this great resource, Chomp, before Apple bought them.
Yeah.
That they really did a lot of research on what were those popular keywords that people look for, and they just discontinued all of that when they were purchased. But
the truth is, and I think you've written about this, in the app stores there's a lot of branded app search, so people usually know what they're looking for when they get there. There's not a whole lot of browsing. So if you have an app, you want to promote it outside of the app store and create awareness for it wherever you can, so that when people get to the app store, they're searching for it by name anyway.
Yeah, so keyword research and keyword suggestion algorithm is a very interesting topic simply because keywords has pretty much been branded the currency of the internets since the beginning of time. 12 years ago when I was at Overture, I wrote the original Overture keyword suggestion tool, which talked to a lot of the domainers here, and you guys use that for picking domain names. Let's apply that to mobile now. How do you think keywords have changed with mobile traffic? And then based on that, what advice would you give to domainers on where they could speculate, whether it's sector or type of geo or whatever domains they could buy that caters towards the new mobile world?
I think short domains is where it's at. If you're gonna get creative with like .pizza or whatever, don't do Joe's Best Pizzeria in Town .pizza. Do like p.pizza or something. Keep it really short. But I'm not. I guess I understand you guys are domainers and you like to speculate about which domains are going to work. I'm traditional, so I like ccTLDs and .coms.
I think that it's important. I mean, I agree with that, but I would add that you really should think about location and the functionality of the mobile device as opposed to the desktop computer. And what I found is that a lot of people are looking for the word nearby. So especially for people with a local store. So pizza nearby, because they're on the go. This is the new use case, which didn't really exist before, that mobile has given us, and that's important, I think. I mean, local in general, but specifically, people who just want to find something nearby. And also, phone numbers are really big. I think that, in a previous panel, they were talking about, click to call and all that, but really people are just looking for a phone number for, some place that they can contact on their phone. And I don't know that that the actual phone number would be relevant to domainers, but maybe something around that they could build up.
Maybe it would. What about something like a 411.com or something?
Yeah, true.
That might be cool.
You were talking about keywords in the App Store, and another way of probably one of the leading ways of getting exposure for people getting noticed with your apps is actually app ranking, which is tough because you can't get ranked. The more your app is used and usage and downloads and everything will get your app exposed higher up. And so one of the ways that people, app developers and companies and products will create that is by doing advertising just to generate installs to get yourself exposed into the App Store to give you that organic traffic. And but people will pay quite a premium for that. So we'll advertise applications out there, and it's typical to see some of the premium application ads will be from $3.50 to $5 in eCPM, and some lesser ones will drop to $1.50 to $2 in eCPM. But what's interesting is you could take some of those, particularly on mobile, and if it's targeted towards some specific apps, you can actually give a lot of real estate to advertising one or two, perhaps apps on some of those experiences, and people are willing to pay that. And there are some aggregate app advertising aggregators and products out there to help you advertise on mobile web for the cross-sell to applications on the phone.
And building off of that, a lot of really savvy companies, if they're really trying to promote an app, they'll buy the domain name. Yep. So like if you see like Pepsi has an app and they haven't bought PepsiApp.com, go buy it and then sell it to them.
Yeah, we do that too, or similar ones. We'll come up with product names that one is, something like Viz, and we'll go, okay, what can we do that? Something Viz, or, app.com is very, very popular. Yep.
I just want to say Pepsi is a client of ours, so I wouldn't advise.
Okay, not Pepsi.
Coke app.
CokeApp.com.
Exactly. One of the stats I want to recall again that Deborah mentioned in her opening remarks on Tuesday is that from the 4 million or so domains that Oversee manages, we see 20% of that traffic at the end of last year is mobile, of which half is smartphone and half is feature phone. And this year, we suspect by the end of the year, it'll be at 40%. So as a domainer, you simply cannot avoid the inevitable, which is the reason why we're very mobile focused today. We have all these panels and talks on mobile. Is mobile's here, and mobile's here to stay, and it's only going to grow bigger. And the fact that CPM mobile is lower, if we do not figure out how to monetize for mobile better, we're all going to be losing money. So kind of tying what the domainers know about their business and how everybody's going onto mobile and they're fat fingering the domain names on mobile. What do you guys think about GTLDs and anything that may be tied to mobile? If you had $250,000 burning in your pocket, would you speculate on one or two GTLDs? I think is mobile specific.
I mean, from an SEO standpoint, and that's kind of my background is in SEO, and mobile is, obviously a subset of SEO. But as an SEO, I can't really say that that's going to have an impact in the search results. I mean, I still think that you'll need to work on the authority of the domain, that it won't just be the keywords that's going to be the silver bullet for you. That being said, if I had $250,000, a mobile-specific one would be .nearby, probably.
Okay. I think, Gary, you mentioned something also, that is very relevant to the user experience of mobile versus desktop. Desktop, when we moved to Chrome, or the traffic increase in Chrome introduced a single box, which is search and URL combined. Whereas mobile, there's still separate boxes. Where do you see that play out, and how domainers should play with domain names?
Yeah, I think tablets are going to go the route of the desktop, where you go to single search, single location bar, text box, right? And so you're going to get less and less just typos going to domains. But fortunately on the phone, because of the form factor and because you have a lot of, when you're opening it up, you have a lot of specialized keyboards. So when I'm typing in a domain, I get one keyboard that has .com or has the dot symbols, right? Has slashes in it. And I bring up the search box, I have one that's more just, pure, QWERTY text. And you're going to see that going for a time, at least for a few more years until they come up with some new technology or new ways or more voice happens with it. We were talking about earlier. And that'll still last, at least probably my guess is at least probably 1 to 2 years, you'll still see. I do it. I actually literally did it the other day all the time. I'm typing in the address and I'm still think I'm searching. And that still happens on mobile and will continue for a while.
Yeah. I don't use Siri much. I have an Apple iPhone. I don't use Siri much, but I know my neighbor uses Siri all the time. He uses Siri to text. He uses Siri to order Chinese food at a nearby restaurant. So the whole search mentality of typing may transition over to voice.
Right.
And whether it's a thick accent, misspoken, how does that translate over to and how the domainer should think about domains? That's an interesting thought. Just throwing it out. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think you're going to see two things. One is Google's doing an interesting one. Apple's very broken apart, where if it matches their search, it'll give you a direct hit, and then it says, hey, or it says, would you like to search the web? So that's what Siri's doing. Google Now is a little more sophisticated, and I think you'll see Apple go this direction. But Google Now will do where they're blending the results from web searches that are coming in from voice with their exact matches, whether it's movies to their internal database, but also with web traffic, and that fits their model better than Apple. So that's one perspective on it, and then another more interesting one is if I say the wrong words. Even my kids are adopting Siri and things like that very, very, more quickly than we do. They actually get a kick out of it, but they'll say weird things or off the cuff, or they'll say it wrongly, and so it's very interesting to see what they get research results from. And some of it's just exploration for them. They just want to see what Siri returns, and you actually get that give and take of funness happening too.
Mm-hmm.
The technology that Google is using for their voice search is, in the end, I think going to be much more sophisticated than anything Apple's able to do. They're matching stuff up even with accents and dialects in the cloud. Somehow, based on your location, they're taking that into account when you submit a voice query. That's much, much more scalable than the way Siri works. And so I think that I would say in the next 2 years, we're going to see a much bigger push from Google to search by voice. And there will be opportunities for kind of the new typo will be the new misinterpretation of Google Voice. But you'll have to capitalize on those fast because the Google Voice algorithm is kind of a learning algorithm. It gets better the more it's used because there's more resources to match the voice pattern to in the cloud. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, speaking of machine learning and voice learning, you hit a subject that's near and dear to my heart, which is big data. Coming from Yahoo, we dealt with a lot of big data, and actually big data is what drives and helps the SEO market, in that the data that's provided from whether it's keywords, search results, logs, really helps then figure out how to optimize for SEO. For example, one of the big controversies was Google stripping away the refer. So when you don't have from information, all of a sudden you lose a huge chunk of amount of data. The problem with mobile is it's not as mature in terms of web, in terms of the amount of data that's available. And in the Apple ecosystem, it's a closed ecosystem, so you actually don't get a lot of data that you expect on the web, whether it's web logs and whatnot. Do you see that open up, especially with more traffic going to Android, which is a more open ecosystem, with more and more amounts of data on mobile? Where do you see that drive mobile SEO?
Yeah, I think that it will open up. I think that it has opened up significantly from when, Cindy and I first started, talking about mobile SEO. I know that I had to. You're getting more data from different sources, and it only benefits people like Google when they can give you, more keyword data so that you can really figure out how to optimize for mobile. Because then you can bid on those keywords and they monetize it, and I think it's basically going to be the same as the web essentially, where all of this data was mobile, but it's all related to the user experience, and so Google is going to give you that so you can optimize as you do. I mean, I had to beg. I think it was one of our contacts at Google. Initially asked him to give us a mobile keyword tool, and he said that he's hearing that a lot. So I think that, and I've other vendors that I've talked to, when I ask them for more mobile data, they say, we really just need to hear that people need that data. And so, whenever I talk to somebody about, opening it up and really, understanding more about the mobile consumer, I tell them, you really have to let these platforms know that it's needed for optimization, or it'll never appear.
Yeah, data is also drives mobile PPC, and you're an expert, Cindy, on PPC campaign for mobile. Tell me some of the tips that you give your clients.
I'm not an expert anymore. As of yesterday, I have no idea.
So speculate on what the new tips should be.
The tips used to be a lot about segmentation by device. I really don't know. You really need to have a mobile-friendly landing page. That's one thing that hasn't changed. You need to be still detecting the device that you're serving to and serving them a really nice mobile-friendly landing page that's nice and clean, that Tim Ash, who spoke earlier today, would love, and have clear calls to action. And have fast load time. I think that when we lost all the levers in AdWords, that we have only to control the landing page now. So that's where it's at. That's where the battle's to be had. And a lot of people are sending mobile traffic to desktop landing pages, and that's a waste of money.
I would say, but be careful though, because the performance is huge. Because people will abandon really quickly if it takes too long.
Yeah.
But also leave a way that you can get from the mobile landing page to, particularly for true service, from the mobile to the desktop and back. Because a lot of time the mobile experience is not full featured, at least initially today in a lot of places.
I always also coach people to have bailout options. If you have a conversion that you're trying to accomplish over the phone, like over the phone web, let them bail out and send themselves an email where they can pick up where they were in the middle of filling out a form when they decide it's too long or their bus gets where it's going or something like that. Allow them to text you or allow them to call you if they have questions in the middle of filling out a form. Don't force them to type a lot with their thumbs. Give them the other options to save it for later. Do it email, do it on a phone.
Or SMS is a good one too.
Or SMS.
Yeah.
Okay. Mobile is a very exciting arena to be in. 3 years ago, I attended, actually it's almost 4 years ago, I attended the very first iPhone developer conference, and back then iPhone was just a blip in the radar. People were still using their Blackberries and happy with their Nokia flip phones, and look at how the landscape has completely changed. So last question for everybody in the panel. If you were to put on your Conan O'Brien year 2000 hat, well, now it would be year 3000 hat, in the year 3000, or let's just say at least 3 years from now, where do you see mobile, and how should the domainers here be prepared to adjust for mobile?
Well, I think that mobile, will be more about the Internet of Things in, 5 years from now, probably. So, basically that everything's tagged, and you'll be able to, things will have RFID chips that will communicate to each other, and
Everybody be wearing Google glasses and be driven by Google cars.
Yeah, well, partially the Google Glass is part of it. I mean, we'll see if that actually, pans out. But, I think that even without Google Glasses, just the idea that, you can, Google talked about it as augmented humanity, where, you can walk around somewhere, and Eric Schmidt talked about it this way, actually, where you can walk around and Google will give you information about something, without asking about it. It will just, augment your experience with information about the things around you. And to some extent, it's not just the future. I mean, Google now, on my way here, told me about, photo events nearby, So it's already happening today. But I think that it'll happen a lot more in the future, especially with innovations like Google Glass.
Yeah, I think the large one is the phone is, I think you're going to see disappear. It's going to be a personal computing device, right? And then, I see that today. Like I have a heart rate monitor, I have a bicycle monitor, I have a cadence monitor, and they all connect to the phone. And, what do I need? I actually don't phone that often. So I think that's going to change. But then the other big one is I think you'll see this huge shift to voice. I think Siri, Google Now are just the tips of it, because the fact that if I'm doing activities and I want to, we've gone back to holding stuff in our hands. So I think you're going to see get away from, I don't need to hold it anymore, something will privately talk to me or show something to me. And I'll be curious, I don't know if I can predict how, how would you interact with that? How would you own a piece of that? That'll be very curious to see where that goes.
I would say in 3 years, it's not voice, it's mental telepathy control.
Yeah.
You gotta
the
think.
force.
You gotta make sure you think without an accent, otherwise you'll have a domain mistypo.
Right.
What about you, Cindy?
I think it has a lot to do with what you were alluding to with big data, as well as, if you were here yesterday morning, what Danny was alluding to with social cues and social votes. I think that, especially in terms of search, which is what I really love, is that search is going to be, and everything is going to be, much more personally customized to your phone. This was a big thing that happened on the web a couple years ago, the really personalized results. And I think it's going to go further on the web, but it's also going to go even further on your phone with different apps talking to each other, and Google Plus informing your search results, and so your friends and what they like will now come into your search results because they know it's you searching on your phone because it's your phone. It's not like a shared computer or something like that. So I think mass customization and a lot less predictability in terms of what my experience is going to be in a search versus anyone else's. And that's a lot of fragmentation, and that's hard to manage as a publisher, as an advertiser. The job is going to get harder.
Interesting on search today, even today, they'll cater to location in the search results for ranking on mobile.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even that alone is changing what you see. and that's just small.
That's just one signal. There are a lot of signals that can be taken into account.
Yeah, at the end of the day, searching keywords is about intent. What is the user intent? And if you have more information, like location and social signals, I think you'll get higher CPM, higher CPC, and everybody wins. So with that, any questions? We have any audience? We've got a panel of mobile experts.
Gene, could you ask your panelists to give the audience sort of the biggest challenge they've had in mobile?
Absolutely. So yeah, what are some of the challenges your clients have?
I would say the largest one is taking what is traditionally their business. There's two pieces to it. One is the experience, the features may not fit mobile very well. And so trying to figure out how do you adapt that? How does that fit into how do you use the experience? You know, what works that's going to work on mobile? And then the other one is what will people actually, what do they end up doing? There's different, you know, if I'm on the go, I use my phone. If I'm at home, I use my iPad. If I'm in the office, I use my computer. And so it's trying to figure out the right balance of features that targets each of those, you know, just intended use cases just based on what device I have with me, and making sure you focus on that. And then, can we still make money on some of those devices, you know, knowing that we just lost some use cases that they might not be doing on mobile? And so it really changes, you know, it's sometimes very cumbersome for a company and for people to get over that step, to know that you know, my model may not work exactly, you know, it might be very different than what they've done in the past for what we do on web.
Do you see adjusting the domain sponsor app for a different form factor like iPad?
Yeah.
With the iPad, you have more real estate. How would you?
Yep, well, one is you can see more, you definitely get the ability to see more information on a single page, on a single screen. And you can, as a result of that, we can get a lot more aggregate, a lot more visual, a lot more charting. But the other one, more importantly, is if I'm using an iPad, I generally will have a different reason. I might actually want to have more edit capabilities because it's more of where I want to, you know, I'm out on the go. I might be not bringing my laptop with me. I might be bringing my, you know, on a ski vacation for the weekend, actually, right? And so I'll bring my iPad, but I still want to be able to control things. But usually with the phone, I'm okay just waiting till the evening to go tweak everything. And so an iPad, I think it gets that hybrid where you want to have more, you know, capabilities, and you're not going to have your laptop with you.
Cindy, challenges that your clients see and that you solve?
The biggest one is almost always platform issues. So I work with a lot of big clients that publish a lot of content and then a lot of mobile content that corresponds. And so they use platforms, and platforms are great at saving time, but they are not great at managing things like SEO. The people who build mobilization platforms don't know anything about SEO, or they might say that they do, but you dig into their system and they don't. So I suppose in a broader sense, I would say mobilization tools in general don't trust that the tool that you're using without vetting it. And that means checking and understanding how it works and deciding if that's right for your company.
Bryson?
And similar to what Gary was saying about, you know, how making sure that your desktop business model, you know, works on mobile, I think that a lot of, you know, our clients are thinking about their user and their user behavior on mobile as opposed to desktop, you know, to make sure that, you know, their business is still applicable. But, you know, specifically thinking about like those, you know, those keywords that they might use that, you know, are specific to that context that they've never seen before. So a lot of them are dealing with that. Also, people have challenges with understanding new, you know, this brave new world of mobile SEO. You know, something like, you know, you hear the designers a lot of times talking about responsive web design, and I know Cindy and I hear this a lot, you know, is it responsive web design? Should we put it on 2 URLs? You know, and this is a big challenge for a lot of our clients. You know, that's the challenge. I don't know if you want the solution as well. But yeah, the solution, or at least I think, and I know this was brought up in the previous panel too, is you really want to think about your user. I mean, if you're thinking about SEO, you want to think about the search engine results and what it's going to take to make relevant content in the search engines to what the user is looking for. And a lot of times, if you're just transporting your desktop content into a mobile environment, you're going to miss out on some nuances in search behavior and user behavior. So you really want to make sure that your site architecture is relevant to both the mobile user and the desktop user. And I don't know if this is extremely relevant to domainers who are just parking, but I mean, it's really a best practice for SEO, and it's something that our clients are dealing with frequently.
And the challenges for our clients, you guys, the domainers, is this increasing mobile traffic and money left on the table, literally, because mobile advertising currently just doesn't monetize as well for mobile as it does for web. Fortunately, we have strong partners in my engineering team, a bunch of smart folks, strong partner in Lowlay, strong partner with Google. And we need to figure this out. We have the data. We are doing A/B testing. We're providing new designs, new landers, and really to help us drive up and fill that gap of monetization. Because if we don't, then we're all going to be in deep shit. So that's the bottom line. So we're there with you guys to help you guys solve that challenge.
So I was wondering, could you speak to emerging markets and the challenges that arise with the fact that our mobile trending, that we see the data, we see feature phone to smartphone transition, but more so in emerging markets is where most of the mobile growth is actually occurring. And most people in emerging markets are actually only using mobile for surfing the internet. They don't have a computer at home. So you just want to speak to that.
I think it's an awesome opportunity, and every client I have that has lots of money, I try and convince to go into emerging markets, because there's just so much that can be done that hasn't been done yet. The thing about emerging markets is there's the penetration of Android devices is much higher in emerging markets. So you're looking straight to Google Play if you want to build an app. They tend to be savvier in terms of using the less sophisticated devices. Texting, they're much more willing, in my experience, to jump through hoops. If you say, I'm going to text you this code, then you text me this code, then we're going to do that, and they'll do that. It's bizarre to me. But if you look into mobile banking, and I'm not talking about Wells Fargo, but in India and Africa, people can pay for things with minutes, and that's fascinating to me. Minutes can be a currency, and you prepay for your phone minutes, but then I can transfer my minutes to you, and you can cash them in. That's one of the coolest things I've ever heard of, and it's getting more and more press recently. But yeah, emerging markets and mobile, so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. It changes the game as far as responsive web design and Google's recommendations for that, because everyone has heard at this point that Google does recommend responsive web design, but they really only recommend it if you are building for smartphones, which if you're dealing with emerging markets, then these are primarily feature phones. Everybody's seen the Mary Meeker slide with India and how they primarily access through the web through mobile devices now. Well, they're doing it through feature phones, and Google does not recommend responsive web design for feature phones. So, as far as SEO, if you're thinking about, if you're thinking beyond the US, you really are only dealing with either dynamic serving or specific mobile URLs in order to build your site.
Subscription is actually really big too. To SMS subscription services, I know years ago, actually, I was at a conference where Thomson Reuters guy was talking to about a weather and farming report SMS subscription, where people were signing up for 99 cents a month or something like that to get specific links texted to them, and the link went up to a WAP page for that day's farming review, weather and everything. and that was a huge hit.
Well, one thing very different between the U.S., particularly for smartphones, and you start seeing the adoption of Android overseas, is particularly in lower cost devices. Is in the U.S., in Europe, we have a lot of devices that have high resolution. They're large. You're getting just all they do is get larger. We build tablets. Now we're getting phone tablet hybrids, and they get bigger and bigger, and you can see much more content on there.
Tablets.
Yeah, but a lot of the Android devices that are in that are lower cost price points have a lot. They're almost going back to feature phone resolutions. They still are smartphones. They still have a browser in them, but they have probably a quarter of the real estate, or at least a quarter number of the pixels that you can use. So you have a very, very even smaller amount of space to target them for on a landing page. So I would really consider that if I was looking at a European, a North American market, landing pages versus even like a China or an Africa landing page. It's going to be very, very different screens they're using.
There's also different ad models. There are ad-supported carriers in some countries where people who can't afford to get the phone that they want will agree to watch or participate in a certain number of ads or surveys per month, and that pays off their phone bill, so they have a free nice phone. And so that's an advertising venue. If you're in an emerging market, look for carriers like that.
Yeah, I think in terms of emerging market, if you look at Africa and India, these are two extremes where they're not tied down by the legacy of landline infrastructure and AT&T, and so the fact of the matter is nobody has a laptop. Kids are born without ever seeing a laptop or a desktop. It's all mobile. So how does that go into, again, minds of the domainers? Start squatting on African domain names. Make sure they're UTF-8, make sure they're double byte, make sure they're you're talking the language. It's an international market. Do we have any more questions?
Oh, right here.
Oh, there we go.
Do you have any specific recommendations on device detection? I've heard of a couple different methods, user agents versus detecting properties of the phone, like resolution or JavaScript or whatever. What's the most accurate way, either paid or free or whatever?
Device Atlas.
Device Atlas, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know Device Atlas?
No. First time.
Do you want to just explain?
There's quite a bit of open source frameworks that will go through that. It's kind of crowdsourced for all the new devices. A lot of the vendors will participate with that. The second thing we also do a lot of is with a lot of modern CSS development and things, we can get to just auto scaling, where we build it once, it'll scale no matter what's going on. Now, the only thing I would get into is I'd still be careful, because something that auto scales, it may not, you're serving the same content again, and it may not be in the order that you actually want to present on that device, or might not have the same conversions by trying to build that one thing that'll rescale and resize to everything.
Gotcha. What was the open source solution you're referring to? Or is it more
Forget, it starts with a W.
I can't say.
Yeah.
W-U-F.
Warful.
Thank you.
They closed that one. They closed that one off to change.
But
license.
Device Atlas uses that.
Device Atlas is Warful, and I think it's
Yeah.
a relatively inexpensive solution.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a $99 for a year or something, and it's a database of device specifications.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It becomes less of an issue with the larger smartphones, but particularly in the international market, I think it's actually more important again. With most smartphones, it's pretty much, is it a phone, is it a tablet, is it desktop, is almost enough. But because most of the smartphones today have gotten large. But as you're getting emerging markets again, we're going back to having to take a step back again. Okay, now we're going to have this much of a screen.
Too long.
So it's going to become important again.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Oh, got one more? All right,
Hello.
time for one more.
Just one more. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit more about, in your opinion, the future of web-based apps. I'm asking mainly for two reasons. For one, there's iOS, there's Android, BlackBerry's trying to make a comeback. There's Windows now. So it's getting very difficult to actually code and create apps for all markets. And at the same time, you have Google pushing Chrome OS. So I wonder, is that like a trend, and maybe in a few years there might be no iOS, Android? So what do you guys think?
I'll jump in a little bit. So Unfortunately, we do have some toolkits out there that can do the right ones, run on all platforms. They don't perform. They don't necessarily have the right response time, the right features. You're kind of building for the lowest common denominator or feature sets that they may not all support in the same manner. I would love to see it improve where we can do more tools with that. Adobe's got some nice tools for it. Obviously, there's Titanium and PhoneGap. We've actually rewritten a lot of apps that have gone that route and actually now gone pure native with it because they didn't like the response times. They didn't like the lagginess. The really challenging issue is there's the vendors, whether it's Apple or Google or BlackBerry or even Microsoft, they don't have, particularly Apple, they don't have a strong reason to support that. They don't invest in running web-based tools inside of an app. In fact, they purposely keep the old technology, and it's slower performing than what you see in mobile Safari as an example. And they really want to push you to building for their platform because it's frankly lock-in. And you get a much better, richer experience that you just can't. Even today they don't have the hardware. Even though we were joking last night that we have more power in this than we do on the space shuttle at the Endeavour we're looking at, right? But it's still not enough to give some of the experiences that you're trying to get with mobile web embedded inside an app. My prediction is 2 to 3 years from now, I think that might change. But at the same time, you're also giving up the App Store. The App Store is a new thing. People have gotten trained to going to find apps, find services through the App Store. And I don't know if I see that going away.
I do.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I think apps are filling the problem that you just described,
Yep.
which is load time, speed, all those things. But I think that the web is the answer. HTML5 is the answer. Rah, sis, boom, bah, HTML5. I think everything's going to go up to the web, just like we used to have all this shareware and downloads. Who downloads software anymore? Nobody. Usually, if you can, you'll use it from the web because it keeps your device clean, fast, light, and the processing happens in the cloud. If you want a really great example of a really interesting, useful web app, I would go look to the Financial Times. It behaves like an app, but it works on any phone, and you build it once. Awesome.
And another advantage, since we're marketers, is that web apps have 100% reach, where the App Store has limited reach. All of the native app stores have limited reach. And developers, I think, eventually have to consider that if they want, not just a good experience, but visibility for that good experience,
And if you're building flexible apps that'll work on an iPhone and an iPad, why wouldn't you just build it, if you're not gonna have a predictable rendering environment anyway, then put it on the web.
Yeah.
The benefit of the iPhone development is that you have a predictable environment. When that goes away, why bother?
So I agree, today there's two different things. We noticed that on iPhone, the first response, people go to the App Store. They actually don't even go to the web today. They look for a product or a service, App Store first. On Android, we actually see the opposite. People will tend to mostly use browser-based apps. I'm actually curious to see, I'd love to see the idea that where app stores and things could actually have a hybrid where you could have native apps, but the App Store could actually also expose just 100% web-based apps. You can do that today. I can open up a web page in Apple. I can click and hold it, save it to my desktop. But there's nothing like that where if I find it on the App Store, it'll just add it to my desktop and it is a pure web app. And that would be quite an interesting model because you just have two different style of users, or at least how people are trained to use it. And that's what, I don't know how hard it will be to break that pattern again.
And with that, I'd like to thank the panel for a great and interesting discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. Helpful and interesting. So we have a 30-minute break. Please come back in half an hour, and we're going to have our Pitch Fest contest. We have 7 presentations and feedback and scoring from a panel of judges, but you also get to score and pick your favorite pitch. There will be a People's Choice Award winner. So please come back, and we'll see you in 30 minutes. Thank you.